Do you want to move the sunscreen from over your right shoulder?
Come on, skin health is like the most important thing. It's like
I
half of what I talk about.
100% agree that it is.
Welcome to Let's Talk Tech with NVTC, a digital series exploring tech's most notable trends, new innovations, digital transformations, lean agile principles and mindsets, the future of work, and more. We'll introduce next-gen leaders from member companies of the Northern Virginia Technology Council and learn about the great impact they are making in our region. I'm your host, Philip Nathrop. Welcome to Let's Talk Tech with NVTC. Today's episode will feature KPMG's and the Awkward Networkers' Sean Hand, as well as our Did You Know section at the end. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Accenture, American Systems, Consumer Technology Association, General Dynamics Information Technology, ICF, MITRE, TalkDesk, and our media partner, iHeartMedia. You'll find all of our episodes on Wonk FM and the DC Local Leaders podcast. Now, I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Sean Hand, who is both Director of Business Development at KPMG and the creator of the Awkward Networker. Welcome, Sean. How's it going?
Let's do it. I'm good, man. I'm good. We're recording this on a Friday right before vacation. You're going to get the best of me today, man.
I hope so. I hope so. So you're with KPMG. You've also got the Awkward Networker. Can't wait to hear more about that.
That's right. Yeah. Awkward Networker is something I created a few years back thinking, oh, this is just a labor of love. And now it's become a full blown, side hustle.
Yeah. So it started as a passion project of just something that were you looking to get into coaching? Were you looking to get into speaking?
I had already kind of been there. So at a young age, I'm 33 now. When I started Awkward Networker, I was probably like late 20s. So maybe like 28, 29. But at that time, I'd been in the working world for, 7 years? And I'd sat on a lot of different boards. I was involved in a lot of nonprofits. I was heavily involved in the philanthropic community and the business community. And I had a really extensive network in the greater Philadelphia region, which is where I'm from. And it happened relatively quickly. And so as I started realizing what was going on here, I had built a really substantial network, was heavily involved, and started developing these tips and techniques for myself, because networking is inherently awkward, hence Awkward Networker, right? I find myself in all of these situations where I'm tasked with creating and sustaining organic conversation with people, influencing people in a 15-minute, window. And so as I started developing these tips and techniques, right as I was approaching 30, I realized I needed to start really giving this back to a lot of people. So I started mentoring a lot of young professionals, women professionals, and expats. Those were my three main groups of people that I felt like were just always looking for more networking guidance. So very long story short, it was all of my mentees and counselees that told me the dreaded phrase of, you should write a book. You should totally write a book. You should totally write one. And so I was like, okay, of course, because I'm brilliant. So I sit with my computer, I'm in bed, and I had Word open and the cursor's blinking. And I'm like, all right, man, let it flow. Here we go. You're writing a book. Let it ride. And I realized, I can't write a book. This is who just writes a book from scratch? So after a couple of months, I had this idea to start a blog. And I never thought I'd be a blogger, but I created Awkward Networker initially as a blog to just take little tidbits, right? Just one article here and there, one thought, one technique, and put it out there for the world. And I sat back and waited for the social media trolls to do what they do and be like, this isn't helpful at all. And, this guy sucks. And they never showed up. To their credit. Yeah. They never showed up. Everybody's been so cool and so nice. And then Awkward Networker then began to evolve. People wanted more and more content. They wanted me to do presentations and workshops and travel the country and go to all of these and facilitate all of these events. And then the webcast occurred and the podcast. And then ultimately the book just published late 2020. That was Awkward, 7 Secrets of an Awkward Networker. And after 3 or 4 years, I look and I go, oh my gosh, there's the book, right? The Awkward Networker is a thing now. And it was just been a crazy journey. It's been fun.
Yeah. So just by doing the one thing and then the next thing and doing what's in front of you, look at what's happened, and you've been able to reach and help so many people. Because you're right. Sometimes networking is awkward, right? I think we already recognize that we have a lot of things in common. And I think anyone that's in a business development environment, a sales environment, actually, I take that back. Pretty much any environment that anyone's in, they're going to have an opportunity to network with people. Exactly. They're going to have to find opportunities to network with people and be in conversations with people that they don't know for one reason or another.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're all selling something, right? I mean, we're all, and I know you know that. I don't want to, belabor that point, but like we all are selling something. We know that. The presentation I did yesterday was for an organization. It was for their supply chain group. And within that group, it was all younger professionals under 40 in their supply chain group. They weren't bringing me in to teach them how to sell. They were bringing me in to teach them how to network within their organizations, because they wanted to move up. They wanted to get promoted. They wanted to get that great assignment in, Paris, but you have to know the person making that assignment. Well, how can I influence that person? It was all internal, right? And so to your point, I mean, it's not just people who can sell, it's anybody.
So when we talk about networking, right, what are we talking about? Are we talking about going to events, going to meetings, simply walking up to strangers? I mean, I think from my own personal experience, I have a little bit of a methodology that I use when I'm going into a situation that's new to me to kind of help me prepare for it, sort of like stretching out when I work out. You talking about something similar to that?
I love that. And yes, I do. To answer your first question, my definition of networking is anytime you're with people, one or more people that you don't intimately know, and you're tasked with creating and sustaining organic conversation with those people. To me, that's networking, right? And that could be a one-on-one meet and greet with your new boss. It could be a double date with a couple of colleagues, whatever, taking a client to a baseball game, literally any of those things in which you're meeting new people and have to create and sustain organic conversation, whether it's personal or professional, that is networking in my eyes. Now, to your point on preparation, my prep plan is very simple. I have it available as well on awkwardnetworker.com. And it's my APQ prep guide. And it's what I created for myself: audience, purpose, and questions. Very high level summary. Who's going to be there? Audience. I'm doing this now for you in NVTC. I just did something internally for another organization. I did something for a client a week prior. I was on a panel for Year Up, speaking to Black and Brown youth in Greater Philadelphia, ages 18 to 25. And the two events before that were women's professional development events. All right. So if you think about audience, think about all the different audiences I just described, the vibes in that room, the types of conversations we're going to get into, how thin the conversation is, how deep the conversation is going to get, how much speaking I ought to be doing, how much listening, all of those factors. If I went in cold without actually considering who that audience is, it will be rife for networking situations. I may fall into many traps in which I'll be like, man, why did I say that? Or, oh, I don't know if that came off the way I wanted, right? Or which is more likely, I just lose an opportunity to really influence people and to really build a strong network. The P is purpose. Why are you doing it? Why are you there? 9 times out of 10, the default is like, I don't really know. Like, I'm a part of the organization, so I just showed up. I don't really know why I'm there. I tend to spend a couple of minutes and have a very deliberate purpose, because that helps me guide conversations when I'm tasked with facilitating them. So, and I don't want to get too deep into that, but it is in my book, the whole methodology there. And then questions. I tell everybody this: look, anytime you walk into a room or log on to an event in which you're tasked with creating conversation, create 2 stock questions that you have in your holster prior to entering, that you can unleash at any point, that's specific enough to be interesting to the group, but open-ended enough to facilitate conversation, for the sole purpose of, we do this a lot virtually, where we log on a couple of minutes early and we all look at each other, but the person who organized the meeting isn't on yet. So we're just looking at each other and you're like, it looks sunny there. Is it sunny? Yeah, it's sunny. It's sunny here too. It's sunny here too. And you become the awkward meteorologist, all because you don't know how to resuscitate that dead, quiet conversation. So those 2 stock questions are exactly what I would unleash to resuscitate that conversation, right? And it could be geographical, it could be industry based, could be anything, but make sure that it's educated and that it's going to facilitate conversation. Last thing I'll say about that is because when you do that, networking is a game of interests, it's a game of ego. And it is constantly burning your ego. Every time I say something, I go, ooh, I don't know if that was as well received as I thought it was, or whatever. Right? And you eat away at your own ego. So just having these two stock questions, I know it sounds simple. When you resuscitate dead, flatline conversations, you send signals to everyone else that you are a confident networker. And they respond in kind by assuming that you are a confident networker, regardless of where you are on the intro extrovert spectrum. And when you can send those signals that you're a confident networker, all of a sudden you're going to really find comfort in these situations and you're going to want to do it more and more often, which in turn will then, the fake it till you make it concept, you will then eventually become a very confident networker because you know how to facilitate conversation.
And so you're saying this all starts with APQ, knowing
That's
your
right.
audience, being prepared, and having some stock questions in your back pocket that no matter what, you can just ask,
Exactly.
right? That are pertinent to anyone, anywhere, anytime, I think, right? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. That's it. And you're not done. There's one last thing though, too, that a lot of people overlook. And I promise you, this will make you such a better networker. And that is the secret of warming up. I warm up before any situation in which I'm creating conversation. It's a very awkward situation to find yourself in, right? And you're utilizing parts of your brain, the parts of the brain that we're utilizing right now, Phil, to like talk and do this interview, posture, articulation. I have a very harsh Philadelphia accent. I'm trying very hard to curb some of the ing, some of the colloquialisms, because I have to. I'm not speaking to a Philadelphia audience. So articulation, posture, creativity, short-term memory, all of the parts of your brain that you utilize so heavily when you're meeting new people. Think about how often you use those parts of your brain that whole day leading up to it, or maybe even the week leading up to it, right? Very seldom. Otherwise, it was me, yelling at my kids to be quiet while I'm on this call, or talking to my wife or talking to a couple of colleagues. So you have to warm up those parts of your brain before you start exercising them in these live formats. And for people that don't know who their warm-up partner is, I can help you find that person. It's the person in your neighborhood or in your building or, that you work with, and you see each other every day. And everyone has this person. You see each other every day and you have the same conversation every single day where you say, hey, how are you? And they go, good. You? And you're like, good. And they're like, oh, good. And you're like, good. And you have that same conversation every single day until one of you moves or dies. Grab that person. That is your warm-up partner. So before I came on here, I did the same exact thing. I took a walk around the neighborhood. Noticed there was a new neighbor 2 doors down that just bought a house, and just introduced myself. It's not that stressful of an environment. We are going to be neighbors. I just said, hi, I'm Sean. This is Kristen. Those are my kids. When did you buy the house? Oh, cool. Is that a Villanova V on your hat? Did you go to Villanova? Oh, yeah, we're actually from the area as well. That was it. 2-3 minutes. But now my brain is warmed up. All those parts of my brain that I need are warmed up to have this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, so that goes back to that same sort of example that I kind of threw out there a little bit about like working out. You don't just show up and start doing the thing.
Exactly.
You stretch something out, the calf muscle somewhere, to prepare yourself. And you're talking about preparation. And I think, a lot of times we start feeling vulnerable or fear, right? How do you think that your methodology that you're describing is helping to overcome some of that fear of rejection? Or what do you think those fears are that prevent people from doing this networking?
So that's a good question. And it gets back to that whole intro extrovert concept, right? Where introverts feel like they don't need to prepare at all. And introverts tend to thrive in situations in which they're prepared. They are familiar with the surroundings. There's a beginning, middle, and end. They have a game plan. Introverts thrive in those environments. Yet my introverted friends tend to abandon that reliance they have on preparation when they walk into the most awkward situation imaginable, which is meeting new people in a ballroom, right? And so what do? They walk in, they go, oh, I'm not prepared for this, and they cling to the walls. On the opposite side are our extroverted friends. I'll put myself in that category. We feel like we don't need to prepare for these events either. Why would I prepare? I'm awesome. Okay. I'm going to tell like 1 million stories. All my jokes are going to land. I'm going to make like 10 friends. And I walk in unprepared and I put my foot in my mouth, or I say something stupid that I really regret. So preparation is key for everyone, introvert, extrovert spectrum. The fear concept comes in when it comes to confidence, right? That's the one thing, a lot of the feedback that I had received over the years was, hey, I love the tips, love the techniques. You haven't mentioned the fact that some people are just so scared to go out and meet people, right? And I totally get that. So here's just my methodology when it comes to confidence, and I hope it helps people. I have this fuel burn concept, and it's the way that I kind of equate confidence, right? And I use the example of an athlete like Michael Phelps, right? Michael Phelps can have, I think he had like a 6,000 calorie diet every day or something like that. Why? Because he burns through all of those calories in the pool. Same with all the athletes. They burn through their calories on the field and on the court, whatever it might be, right? So they have this large caloric intake and then they burn it off on the field. Just like athletes, us social athletes, we also burn through our confidence, just the same way athletes burn through their calories. Every time I meet someone new, there is something I say or something they say that cuts through my confidence and burns through my confidence. Here's the problem. An athlete can go to Whole Foods, get dinner, and all of a sudden their caloric intake is back up and they can go back right back out in the field. Us social athletes don't have that capability. I can't get a confidence or an ego shake at Whole Foods and mix it up and all of a sudden I'm the confident person again. So the way I intake my confidence is what I call my confidence Whole Foods. And I talk about this in my book. For me, it's anywhere from 5 to 6 people that I can rely on, and they're people that I can rely on. I could text them at any given point that I know that they're going to do nothing but give me unadulterated positivity, and all they're going to do is support me. And surprisingly, they're not all family, right? There are a lot of friends that are just like, that's why you're the man, only you could do that, right? Just your hype men, hype women that do nothing but fuel your confidence back up, because unfortunately we can't go buy confidence. We can only be given confidence as a gift from people. And I think that's really important. Last thing I'll say about that concept is the same way you and I can't have 6,000 calories and sit on the couch, right? Because what would happen? We would get bloated. The same concept applies to confidence. You and I can't go out seeking all of these people to hype us up and give us all this confidence and sit on the proverbial couch. We have to go out and fuel and burn it. Otherwise, we get a bloated ego, right? And so it's the same concept. The fueling is just as important as the burning. The burning is just as important as the fueling. And the only way to do that is to go out and put yourself out there in uncomfortable situations and find a way to make yourself comfortable, and know that as you're burning through that confidence and putting your foot in your mouth and feeling awkward, and your purse slips as you go to hit the elevator and all your personal belongings fall all over the elevator and everyone's helping you pick it up and you feel so stupid. That's all good stuff. That means you're burning through your confidence, and then all you have to do is find someone to help you fuel it, or people to help you fuel it. And that's the healthy balance.
Yeah. You're saying like confidence is a muscle, and that, it can get stronger through repetition. And,
exactly.
And so, but it could seem overwhelming sometimes for someone to go, like, let's say that introverted friend that you have, to just, digest all this and then go straight to, all right, let's get my list out. How do they take small bites out of this? How do they little by little start to improve on one thing and then the second thing, and then, add it all up to something that they can actually apply without even thinking about it anymore?
Yeah, so there's 2 points I'll make there. One is I mentioned nonprofit boards right when we were first started talking. For me, finding out a passion or an interest that is just something that you just can't get enough of, and something that you love to contribute to, and getting involved in an organization that aligns to that passion or that mission, it circumvents all of this introvert, extrovert nonsense. Because you're now getting involved in an organization that means something to you and that you're passionate about and that you could speak very educatedly on. Once you get involved in that organization, and then, possibly go up for some, committee level positions and board level positions, now you're in a board level position for a philanthropic or community-based or civic-based organization that is important to you and that you have a strong passion for. Now you all of a sudden have a lot more confidence, and you don't really have to go out and start meeting all of these new people fresh. A lot of people are going to start to want to meet you because you are at a board level in a certain organization. I feel like that's a good, easy way to kind of, instead of being the moth to the flame, kind of be the flame, right, in that certain area. And you'll see more people want to talk to you and get to know you. And when people reach out to you, this is that push-pull dynamic. Instead of pushing and trying to meet new people all the time, sometimes when you create an environment where you're pulling people towards you, you'll see how much easier it is to facilitate that conversation, because you didn't have to have that jolt to like go out and meet people. They're coming to you. It's making it a whole lot easier. They're kind of in your neighborhood, right? The first tip. Second tip I would say there is it gets back to this imposter syndrome thing that we all have, right? Where you're sitting there. I'll be honest, there was a part of me that was like, why are you guys having me on this? I saw the guests you have. Like, I don't know if I'm as good as these other people. It's ubiquitous throughout our whole lives. We always, because we're, humble creatures, that we often go, I don't know if I should be here right now. Like, I don't know if this is for me. And I don't know if this is where I should be. When you're in those situations, which we find ourselves often, what I like to encourage people to do is put yourself in a situation in which you are the objective subject matter expert. All right. So for me, if you're, I talked to a lot of people lately that are starting to go out again post-pandemic, some of my recruiting friends, and they're going and recruiting again, and they're going out and they're having a dinner. They're going to a college campus. And they're like, oh man, I don't know. It feels weird. I don't know about this anymore. I don't know if I could do it anymore, or if I have what it takes. And as they have this imposter syndrome, I remind them, you are a subject matter expert in this particular field, right? So put yourself in a situation, talk to a high school, talk to a college, mentor some young professionals, put yourself in a situation in which people are objectively looking at you going, teach me everything you know, because you know so much more than me, right? You are so much more experienced than I am. I would love to, pick your brain on certain things. It's just going to give you that confidence that you need to realize, oh, okay. Oh, I'm not a loser. Like I have something to provide. And I do that really, really often. And I alluded to that yesterday, the presentation I did for young professionals and internal. Coming off of that, the response I got from that was like, oh my God, thank God you came in. I really could use that help. I was a subject matter expert to them. And now I'm talking to you confidently when I was having a little bit of butterflies earlier, because I was just reminded 24 hours ago that I'm a subject matter expert. I think that's really important for people.
Yeah, sounds like for that introvert, the new thing may be the interaction, but the subject matter which you're having that interaction for is not a new thing to you. And if you remember that, you can gain some confidence to just go in and do that.
And maybe be deliberate about that particular area, right? Know where you're confident, right? What couldn't I speak to? Like, I don't know. ESG is like a big thing that everyone's talking about in the consulting world. I don't know a lot about it, right? So I'm not going to start getting involved in that arena right away to try to meet people, because they're inevitably going to ask me like question 2 or 3, and I won't have any idea what they're talking about, right? And then that's going to make you feel it. So there are certain areas that I can speak knowledgeably or that I am passionate about. So I'm going to gravitate towards those areas initially to start building some stronger relationships there initially to get my confidence up.
Yeah, and so you mentioned something earlier there that we're getting back to some in-person opportunities to network, but there's still plenty of virtual ones, and there were over the last year. Did you see a difference in like your APQ and some of the methodologies that you would suggest to someone to build that confidence to go in and network? Did you see a difference in virtual versus in person?
Yeah, there's a big difference. I mean, the number one difference, I'll say, the number one change was that spontaneity is dead. It's coming back. It's slowly being revived. There's like a little beep, beep, beep happening. There's a little pulse. But for over a year, all the spontaneity that we enjoyed, it didn't realize was a privilege, since antiquity, was ripped from us. The carpet was just ripped out from under us. I used to go to my clients. I knew the stakeholders. I knew the people that I wanted to talk to and influence. I had their names down with what I wanted to talk to them about. And I would sit in the cafeteria and they would walk by and I would say, hey, Philip, hey, how's it going? Hey, real quick, I wanted to follow up with you on that thing. Because I knew every day they were going to come down and grab a cup of coffee, or I would run into them in the greater Philadelphia region. I would run into them at a board meeting. If I met you once, I can meet you again. That was always my slogan. Now, in 2020 and even most of 2021, all that serendipitous run-in, it's all gone, right? And so it has to be deliberate. And I think that has been the biggest change. If I wanted to get on your calendar, I need a reason. I can't just hope I run into you, right? Or plan to be in the same area as you are on Thursday at that happy hour that for that organization I know you support, right? I can't do that anymore. So I need to say, hey, Philip, it's me, Sean Hand. Would love to get 15 minutes of your time for the following. And so I think with that new world, two things opened in my eyes. One is the importance of building a virtual brand, which I don't know if you want to go down that path, we could talk about that. And the other one was the importance of strong follow-up communication. Because if I didn't secure a follow-up meeting with you in person or virtually, I really need to make sure that I secure that via email and via virtual communication, because there's a really good chance I won't accidentally see you again. So I think those are two areas that I speak a lot on at this point that are more important now than they ever were in 2019.
Yeah. So building a virtual brand, would you say, well, let's talk about building a brand in general, right? Virtual and in person. Do you think it's equally valuable? What did you mean by that when you say build a brand as an individual, or are you carrying your company's brand?
So that's a great question. You phrased that question better than anyone's ever phrased that question, because it's a really important distinction. For me, I say personal brand. Here's why. You mentioned KPMG. You mentioned those 4 letters. You mentioned in the beginning. I wasn't here representing them. I'm here representing Awkward Network, right? I'm here representing Sean Hand. So by building your brand around you and what your passions are, what your identity is, what your ambition is, your side hustle, whatever it might be, your employer, whoever else you represent will yield the benefits of that tangentially, right? So you don't have to, and this is why I help a lot of people with their virtual brands. And they're like, my one friend's at a bank and she's like, well, how do I build my bank brand? I'm like, there's not a lot of people out there looking for bank brands. Like, I don't know how else to tell you. The brand has to be about you. The bank will benefit. You will get more clients. I promise you, if you build a really strong brand, personal brand virtually. And so for her, she was really into at-home agriculture, permaculture, hydroponic type stuff. And so she knew a lot about it. She did a lot of research. So I told and had instructed her to start building that brand. And now she writes articles and she has little like a YouTube, like how-to kind of thing. And she's building this really cool virtual brand around her and this huge passion of hers of permaculture and at-home agriculture. She's like, this is like a few months ago. And she was like, I can't even tell you how many clients I'm getting from this permaculture brand that I've created on LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram, that I'm now, again, like I mentioned, that pull environment. She's creating a pull environment where all these people are now gravitating towards her for this one little thing. And oh, by the way, they have banking needs, right? And oh, by the way, they have needs that she could fulfill with her day job. I think that's a really important distinction. The other thing I'll say too, just really quick on that virtual brand concept, is that there's a power of building a virtual brand that I think a lot of people don't consider. And I want to help illuminate it for some of the people with virtual brand innumeracy, which we all, I think, have as a default. LinkedIn, for instance. I had 2 posts on LinkedIn, like mid last year, maybe late last year. And there were just 2 posts. They took 5 minutes. That's it on LinkedIn. Sean Hand, business development leader and Awkward Networker is my title, my 2 posts. Those 2 posts got about 40,000 views on LinkedIn, which is a lot. Now, I had been building up an Awkward Networker brand. These weren't my first 2 posts, caveat that. But as I had built this brand, I now have 2 posts on LinkedIn, combined 40,000 views. Of those 40,000 views, 280 of those people actually followed me, like clicked follow next to my name, Sean Hand, business development leader and Awkward Networker. Now, here's where I have to stop, because a lot of people think, like, all right, cool, bro. Like 40,000 views. What are you going to spend it on? Like, who cares? It's just a popularity contest. Here's the power of it. Of those 280 followers, 92 of them, I looked it up, 92 of those people are in a decision-making capacity at my clients, right? Now, 92 people, 2 posts, 5 minutes, didn't take me much. 92 people at my clients are now following me. Sean Hand, Awkward Networker and business development leader. Click follow next to my name. Now, when they log on LinkedIn, my image, my likeness, what I'm about will be walking the virtual halls on their feed. And we'll continue to engage, and I'll always at some point be top of mind this week because they will see me virtually. 2019, I had been walking the halls, pounding the pavement, knocking on every door, trying to build business at these clients, taking them out to ball games and dinners and what have you, everything in person. I can't tell you I had more than 15 people follow me in person, right? So that's the power of a virtual brand. With a much smaller investment time, I ended up yielding a much larger result in terms of having who I am in front of my clients on a daily or weekly basis.
Yeah, when you're building that brand, it sounds like you're saying it's important to have a swim lane. And it sounds like you're saying to be niche, maybe that's the word, that you don't have to be all things to all people, but just do the one thing, like your example of the banker. She picked something that she knew well, that she did well, and that became her brand, and it seemed to benefit her. Is that what you're saying? Or is
that's exactly what I'm saying? And you ought not to be all things to all people, because first of all, the population size is massive. The amount of people that you can expose to your brand, I mean, it's crazy. Even if you get 0.0001% follower rate, you'll reach hundreds of thousands of people with your brand virtually. And I promise you, you will, if you just continuously put out content. And the important thing is what you said. You have to have a specific brand in mind that you'd like to develop, because if you truly are trying to build a brand and that requires followers, if this is what you're trying to do, you are the gatekeeper for what your followers find interesting or motivating or thought-provoking or whatever, right? You're the gatekeeper. So you can't then confuse them by, like, if I randomly put something on LinkedIn that was like, are you ready for the financial transformation coming in 20? People be like, what? Did you get hacked? Like, what is this? Because that's not the brand I had developed. And so when people log on and they see that I post, what ought to be going through their minds is, this guy, Sean Hand, the Awkward Networker, took time to curate or create content that he thinks will appeal to me, right? That's why I followed him in the first place. And the more that they can consistently rely on that, the more likely they will be to continue following you into the future and trying to help you build that brand. So I think it's a really, really important part.
Yeah, and I think the process, it sounds like it's a process to build a brand, and it takes time and repetition. Do you think the process of building that brand also adds to a little bit of that confidence, or makes the preparation portion and some of those questions and things to talk about when you do the APQ and when you're going into a new environment, would that make it easier because at least you have a thing to talk about, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And one of the things that I like to talk about in some of my presentations is your golden eggs of value, is what I call them. And the idea there is, and it's usually a homework exercise, because seldom do people come in with this ready. The idea is, if you sat down and you just drew a couple of circles, and I told you have to write inside those circles the value that you can bring anyone immediately that has nothing to do with your day job, what would you say? It has to have nothing to do with your day job. And that's where everybody goes, oh, wait a minute, that's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. The reason is because as you're talking to people and you're building relationships with people that you don't know, they, for the most part, don't care about what you do for a living, right? You might get to that down the road, but I'm looking at Philip. Like, I want to know about Philip because I'm a human being and you're a human being, and we're not in a sales pitch right now. So I want to know about you. And 99% of the conversations you're going to get into is based on that. It's just you getting to know another person getting to know you. Now, if you don't have those golden eggs of value, which for me, it's like Awkward Networker is a big one, right? That's one brand. I created another thing called Furlough Network. It's a more philanthropic type endeavor as it relates. It was my response to the pandemic and trying to help people who have been furloughed and short-term laid off. So it's a cool, like, civic community-minded thing. And then mentorship. Like I said, I'm 33. A lot of the ways I bridge the gap between myself and more senior individuals that I try to sell to or influence is through mentorship, because their kids might be, my age or a little bit younger, nieces, nephews. And so I'll see if I can mentor their kids or their young leaders in their organization. And that is a quick way to bridge that gap. I never mentioned KPMG, never mentioned what I do for a living. Those are other ways I try to add value to individuals right away so that we can get to my day job down the road, meeting 15, 16 after we had already built a relationship that is no ulterior motive. It's just me trying to help you with these other things that I represent. So that's really important. Last thing I'll say on that, and then you ask your next question, is I do a whole 2-hour workshop focused on building and selling your brand portfolio. And that's what I call it. And the idea there is everyone talks about your 30-second elevator pitch, but this is what you're getting to, right? Like when you walk into these situations, it's like, well, what do I talk about? What do I lead with, right? And we all tend to have this great 30-second elevator pitch for what we do for a living. But the question is, do you have that same 30-second elevator pitch for your family and life brand, right? Your family, your life, what's up? What's going on right now, right? I have an 8-week-old, my son's 6, my daughter's 5. I bought a house across the street and I'm moving my in-laws into my old house, which is like a fun little real estate thing. I'm going to have like an Everybody Loves Raymond style situation happening, right? That's what I just did for you is my 30-second elevator pitch for my family and life brand, right? And I have 5 brands that I implore people, and it's a workshop style, and we go through it, but I make them develop their 30-second elevator pitches for these different brands for that reason. When you're meeting someone new and you're getting to know them, if we get on a family life conversation, or a socially conscious conversation, I'll talk about Furlough Network. I'll talk about the work I did with the American Heart Association or Human Lymphoma Society, and I'll try to get them involved and all the other brands that we represent. And I think that helps, that helps circumvent this whole, well, how do I represent myself best for my day job kind of conversation.
Yeah, I definitely want to get to at least what those five brands are, but first so let's say someone is they're using the recipe that you've given them, right? They've done they're prepared, they're going into somewhere new, they've got some talking points of some things that they can just kind of throw out and casually interact with other people that they may not know. It's not about work. It's just, let's just be 2 human beings that live on the same planet and talk about things that are going on at the same time and get to know each other, right? And maybe they hit it off a little bit and they kind of do talk about what they do for work. But now it's time to go. So you mentioned follow-up. What are some of those tips you can give folks? Because that could also be awkward. That could also be fearful. It's like, well, we had a good time. I met Sean. He was cool. It seemed like he liked me, but I don't want to seem too pushy. I don't want to seem like I was kind of tricking him as bait and switch. Like really just wanted to talk about this the whole time, or he's not really going to pick up my phone call, or what. I have them all day. That's all I tell myself all the time. They don't like it. They hate me. It was a trick. Like they didn't really enjoy,
I totally agree with you. Yeah. And it's like, I have thousands of friends and no clients. It's like, well, how do I, how do I make that conversion? It's a really good point. I mean, we could talk about that for an hour. So what I'll say, the follow-up is really important. And if it was important in 2019, it's extra important in 2021 because of the reasons we talked about, remote working and not being able to run into each other as often. A few of the tips I'll give you is if you do meet someone, you kind of hit it off, had an okay conversation, and maybe the window's open for a follow-up meeting. A couple of the tips I tell people when you're sending a follow-up email, the number one thing to do is be detailed. And by that, I mean, if you want someone to say yes to a follow-up meeting with you, all they should have to do is say yes. They shouldn't have to pick the time, the place, the location. They shouldn't have to open their calendar, find a date, send it to you. You're giving people homework to do. And if I want to get on your calendar, you should have no homework to do. All you should have to do is say yes. So I like to pick a Thursday, 3 weeks out between 1 and 2 o'clock, right? Or as long as it doesn't bump up against a quarter filing or a major milestone, whatever it might be. So I will pick a Thursday, 3 weeks out between 1 and 1:15, 1:30, based upon the level of the individual and my anticipation of how tight their schedule is. Are you free that date and time? All you have to do is say yes. What you'll find is a lot of times they'll say no, but they'll say, no, I'm actually on vacation that week. Can you pick the following week? Or can you work with my executive assistant to figure out time? It's never no, period. If it's no period, then you never had a chance of meeting that person does not like you for some reason, right? So it's always no, but, or it's yes, right? And they didn't have to do anything. And I get this a lot, people that want to get on my calendar, and I'm sorry if this sounds a little pompous, but this is why I say this, because people are still doing it. They're like, let's catch up. Let's get together. Would love to pick your brain. Let's schedule something. It's like, you reached out to me. I didn't reach out to you. So why am I sitting down for 20 minutes and working through things? You do the homework. So being detailed is huge. The other thing I'll say that I think a lot of people get wrong is this. There's like this, can I buy you a cup of coffee thing? It's like a old school salesy thing. It's like, we buy a cup of coffee. Hey, Philip, great to meet you. Let me buy a cup of coffee on me, And I hated that because it's like, I'm not mad at the coffee. The coffee is just the vehicle through which you have a meeting. It's the same as breakfast, lunch, after work drink, whatever. Coffee isn't the problem. The problem is, if I'm stating it like that, let me buy you a cup of coffee, or let's get together, lunch is on me. All I'm telling you is that a half hour of your really important time is worth about a $3.19 latte, right? Why? These people are doing well. You don't have to buy the lunch. They could buy their own lunch. Why? And the same thing with these follow-up emails. I sometimes have to stop myself because I realize I didn't do this properly, and other people definitely don't do this well to me and to others. Why? You have to be purposeful. The reason that we all struggle with that is because 9 times out of 10, if I'm honest with myself as to why I want to get on your calendar, it's because I want something from you, right? If I'm honest with my purpose, it's unrequited. I need your help. You're a decision maker at one of my clients, and I want to build a relationship with you so that you buy more services. Like, that is the real purpose. So I try to get cute and, we both went to the same alma mater. Let's get together and talk about, the college or university we came from. It's like, well, we just stop it. They don't want to talk about that. So what I implore people to do is, if you are trying to secure a follow-up meeting to develop a client type relationship with a friend or with an acquaintance, you have to include your purpose. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just be very open and honest and transparent about my purpose and say, look, I just picked up insert client name as my client this year, and I don't know a ton of people. I was able to get to meet you, and I'd love to spend another 15 minutes or 30 minutes of your time getting to know you and your goals for this upcoming year, and how KPMG, if that's who I'm representing, and how KPMG could maybe help continue to facilitate a relationship, right? What I've found is, despite what you see on the news or read in the paper, people are pretty cool. And if you're honest about why, if you're transparent about it, I'm getting like a 90% hit rate where people are like, yeah, I'll give you 15 minutes of your time, because they know the struggle. They know what I'm up to. I'm not hiding anything, but I could kind of use your help. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, if you pick a far enough time out and date out where all they have to do is say yes, a lot of times that's what I'll get. And so those are the two main, a lot of other things, but those are the two main things that I think people should take away and do tomorrow to really have success.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're talking about someone who is in probably a decision-making position at a company that you want to do business with, they've had to do this also to get where they are. Anyone who's got anywhere has been somewhere, right?
Right.
So it's like they understand, and honesty is usually a pretty good policy. Like, just tell them.
That's
but you're
right.
saying be purposeful. Like, I'd like to have. Here's the reason. Here's when I'd like to meet you. Here's why. And just you're about to say something. I think I cut you off.
Exactly. No, I think that's exactly right. I was going to just take it a step further and say your direction in this particular case was to convert an acquaintance into a friend and then a friend into a client, right? There's also another direction that we haven't talked about, which is turning an acquaintance into a friend and a friend into a mentor or a life coach or a champion. And I'm going to tell you, if I sit down, which I've done recently, and I looked at my KPIs for this year, personally and professionally, and what I want to achieve, and my performance indicators. And then over here, I put the people that I'm going to have to rely on to achieve all of those things, 100% of those. Here are the people that I need to rely on. It's like 6 names. It's not a lot of people. They're my mentors. They're my life coaches. They're my champions. They're people that want me to be successful. And I tell people this a lot. In this virtual environment, if you do have an extra hour to dedicate towards relationship development, you can go out and try to build new relationships. Please do. However, you can make the argument that hour might be best spent, or might have a greater return, being spent elevating the existing relationships that you have and elevating those relationships into mentorships, life coaches, and champions. And when you do that, what you'll find is like you're all of a sudden, you don't have to always sell as much. You don't have to always go out and be the spearhead, because you're going to get some more intros because these people want you to be successful. Last 2 things I'll say, and I'll stop talking on this topic, are the issue that I'm seeing a lot of my counselees and my mentees have with mentorships is that because of the pandemic and because of the separation, they're seeing these relationships that used to be strong dissipate. And they're floating away out into the ether, and they can't grab them back, and they don't know what to do. The follow-up question I always tell my counselees when they bring that problem to me is, okay, When was the last time that you told your mentor or champion that they're helping you and that you took their advice, you enacted it, and you yielded a return of whatever? And the answer is almost always like, do I do that? Is that like weird? Should I do that? It's like, yes, you should do that. If you're lucky enough to have a mentor in your life, or a champion, or a coach, or someone, key decision maker, at a client that really is cheering for you, if you're lucky enough to have those relationships, understand that people are shrewd investors of their time. And if they're investing their time in you, they expect a return, not a monetary return. They want a return. In return, all they want is they want to know that A, you're taking their advice and it's making you successful, because that makes them feel good, because then that means they are successful people with really good advice. B, they also want to know that you're doing the same for others. If you're lacking either of those two things, don't be surprised if some of these mentor relationships do dissipate over time, especially when you aren't shoulder to shoulder every day. So make sure you do those two things. Remind your mentors and life coaches that you took their advice, you enacted it, and that it's yielding positive results. That'll make them feel good and continue to build that bond. Also, if you haven't already, find an outlet to then take that advice and provide it to others and pick others up with you. And then remind your mentor and coach that, hey, not only did you help me, you helped these 3 other people, right? And that it's multiplying down the line.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, listen, I really appreciate you sharing all of this with us. And I think we probably have so many questions out there from so many people for you about the Awkward Networker, how to find you, how to get involved. Because I think these things that you're talking about are something that we all deal with. It's not specific to any one person, and it's not a lack of capability. We all have to go through this change or do these things. And some people have done it without knowing they were doing it. Some people may have some natural capabilities, but we can all improve. So I can't wait to get to some of these questions.
Yeah, for sure. And if they do have questions or they want to reach out, awkwardnetworker.com, Sean at awkwardnetworker.com if they want to email me. And then LinkedIn, I just talked about building a brand on LinkedIn, so I'm obviously on there fairly often. I have a 100% response rate, albeit it may take a couple days or a week, depending, but I always respond to people. So if you do have questions or they want to reach out, please feel free to do that on LinkedIn or via email. And if you want to go check out the book that I alluded to, it's available on Amazon. It's called That Was Awkward: 7 Secrets of an Awkward Networker.
All right, Sean. Well, we're going to get to some of these questions and answers. And for everyone out there, don't forget to stick around for our Did You Know section. Before we go, let's talk about Did You Know? It's believed that the origin of grabbing hands as a peaceful greeting began in 5th century BC as a way of ensuring neither person was holding a weapon, with Romans starting the forearm grab. The actual shaking motion of handshakes started in medieval Europe as a way of shaking loose any hidden weapons. According to a study done by Purell, 2 in 5 people are hesitant to shake hands due to germs, with 50% of respondents preferring a fist bump over a handshake. And that study was done in October of 2010, a decade before the COVID pandemic. According to research done this year by HubSpot, LinkedIn is 3 to 4 times more effective in generating leads than Facebook and Twitter, with 80% of business-to-business leads coming from LinkedIn. We hope you enjoyed today's program and look forward to seeing you at the next one. Visit nvtc.org for more information. We look forward to seeing you at next month's Let's Talk Tech with NVTC. And until then, please follow us on Twitter at Nova Tech Council and on LinkedIn, and sign up for our mailing list at nvtc.org for more information.
We look forward to seeing you at next month's Let's Talk Tech with NVTC. In the meantime, follow us at Nova Tech Council on Twitter and LinkedIn, and remember to sign up for the latest tech news at nvtc.org.